On the afternoon of May 7, 2017, that tranquility was shattered, and the town would never be the same again. Brad McGarry, a 43-year-old coal miner known for his kindness and loyalty, was found dead in unsettling circumstances. When David Kinny, Brad's best friend and the man closest to him, arrived at Brad's house with his family, it was here, in the dimly lit basement, that he found the lifeless body of his best friend, Brad McGarry. But who could have done such a thing? Especially to Brad, a lovable family man. Well, the truth is far more sinister than you could imagine. Welcome back to the true stories of the Diary of Darkness. Let's delve into the shocking case of Brad McGarry. Brad McGarry, a well-respected coal miner from West Bellaire, Ohio, was known for his kind heart and unwavering loyalty to his friends and family. Born on October 24, 1973, Brad had grown up in the small town of Cambridge, Ohio. From a young age, he was always the person people turned to for support, whether it was helping a friend with a home project or providing a shoulder to lean on during tough times. As he got older, he chose to work as a coal miner, a profession that was physically demanding but one that suited his no-nonsense work ethic. Though Brad had many friends, there was one person who stood out above all others: David Kinny. Their friendship began in 2011 when they met during a coal mining safety class. The two men hit it off almost immediately, sharing not only professional interests but also a deep bond outside of work. Brad and David quickly became best friends, spending hours together talking about everything under the sun, from their favorite sports teams to personal life struggles. But beneath the surface of their seemingly innocent friendship, something more complicated was brewing. As Brad's friendship with David grew deeper, he found himself getting closer to David's wife, Sherry, and their 3 children. Brad became an integral part of their family, often spending holidays with them, and even being affectionately referred to as Uncle Brad by the kids.
I can't believe that.
How long you guys been together?
8, 9 years.
Oh, yeah.
My kids call him Uncle. He's supposed to go to the Bahamas with us and all.
No one would have ever guessed that there was more to their relationship than met the eye. But behind closed doors, Brad and David had crossed a line that no one else knew existed. Brad had fallen in love with David. What began as a deep friendship soon turned into an illicit affair. Over the years, they had kept their secret, knowing the potential consequences if it was ever discovered. Yet Brad grew more and more frustrated with the secrecy. He wanted David to leave Sherry and start a life with him, but David, who was devoted to his wife and children, refused. It was during the last months of 2016 that Sherry began to sense something was off. She had noticed the small, subtle changes in David's behavior, the late-night texts, the hushed phone calls, and the unexplained absences. Despite David's denials, Sherry couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, and when she confronted him, he vehemently denied having an affair. But Sherry wasn't convinced. As the tension mounted between David and Brad, the situation began to unravel. Brad, in a fit of desperation, made a shocking ultimatum. He would tell Sherry everything if David didn't leave her and the kids to be with him. Brad's love for David had turned into an obsession, and he couldn't bear the thought of being kept in the shadows any longer. On the afternoon of May 7, 2017, Brad McGarry's life came to a tragic and violent end. David, along with Sherry and their 13-year-old daughter, drove to Brad's house to return a weed trimmer that David had borrowed. It should have been a simple and innocent visit, but everything would soon take a dark turn. After David Kinny found Brad McGarry's lifeless body in the basement, his immediate reaction was shock, followed by a deep sense of dread. His instincts told him something was terribly wrong, but at that moment all he could do was call for help. He immediately dialed 911, his voice shaky as he described what he had found.
What's wrong? 911, where's your emergency?
Hi. Listen, stay there.
Where are you at?
No, what's... Wagner?
Okay, what's going on?
I don't even know.
You don't know what's going on?
Is he breathing? Oh my God. My husband's dead.
Okay, is that your husband?
My husband's freaking out, yes.
Okay.
Elizabeth, get outside!
Ma'am.
He's on the floor. There's blood everywhere. Oh my God, he has a gunshot wound in the back of his head. He's in the throat.
What is your name?
My name is Sherry Kinny.
Sherry. You don't see a gun?
No, I don't see a gun.
Okay. Listen, I need you and your husband to back out of the residence and wait outside for the officers. Do you hear me?
Sorry.
When the authorities arrived, they found Brad's body sprawled out on the cold concrete floor of the basement. The blood had already started to pool around him, staining the floor beneath. There were no signs of struggle, no broken windows or forced entry. The crime scene was quiet, almost eerily still, as though Brad had welcomed the intruder into his home. The authorities began their investigation, focusing on the small details that would eventually crack the case wide open. At first, David's reaction seemed to be that of a concerned friend, someone who had found his beloved companion in a tragic situation. He was visibly upset, and his answers to questions seemed genuine, even if a bit emotional. He told investigators that Brad had seemed fine the last time he saw him, that they had been close friends for years, and that this was a tragic accident. But there was something about his demeanor that raised a red flag with the detectives. David was acting too controlled, too nervous for someone who had just discovered their friend's murder. As the investigation progressed, detectives started digging deeper into the circumstances surrounding Brad's death. They began by speaking with those closest to him, his family, his friends, and most notably, his best friend, David. Brad and David had known each other for over 2 decades, and to everyone around them, they were as close as brothers. But the more the detectives looked into their relationship, the more unsettling details emerged. The close friendship was not all it seemed. Brad and David had been secretly involved in a romantic relationship for years, something no one had suspected. They had carefully kept their affair hidden from their families, friends, and loved ones. But as the detectives continued their investigation, they discovered that Brad had been planning to expose their secret, threatening to reveal their affair to David's wife, Sherry. Brad's ultimatum was clear: David had to leave his wife and family, or he would tell the world the truth about their relationship. It was this threat that seemed to have set the stage for what happened that fateful day. On the day of Brad's death, the two men had gotten into an argument, a heated confrontation about the affair, and Brad's threat to expose it. According to David, during their fight, Brad pulled a gun on him in a fit of anger. David, in a moment of panic and self-defense, claimed that he grabbed the gun from Brad and shot him. However, the forensic evidence didn't support David's claim of self-defense. The position of the body and the lack of gunshot residue on David's hands suggested a much more deliberate act of violence. Brad hadn't pulled a gun on David. Rather, the evidence indicated that David had planned to silence Brad before he could expose their secret. The police were also able to confirm that David had visited Brad's house multiple times that day, each visit coming at increasingly suspicious intervals. Security footage from a neighbor's camera showed David approaching Brad's house hours before the body was discovered, his movements slow and deliberate. The footage showed him leaving shortly before the police arrived at the scene. David had an opportunity, and by the time he called 911, it was too late. The evidence pointed directly to him as the killer. The breakthrough in the case came when investigators found the key detail that had been hidden in plain sight. David had lied about the timeline of events. He had been to Brad's house much earlier than he initially admitted, and his alibi started to crumble under further scrutiny. When confronted with the discrepancies, David started to break down. Under intense questioning, the weight of his guilt began to crush him. In a final attempt to save himself, David claimed that he acted in self-defense, that Brad had been the aggressor. He explained that in the heat of the argument, Brad had pulled a gun, and in the ensuing struggle, he had been forced to shoot him in self-defense. But as the police pieced together the evidence, it became clear that David's version of events was a fabrication designed to cover up the truth. The forensic investigation was damning. The trajectory of the bullet and the way Brad's body had fallen suggested that he had been shot in cold blood, not in the heat of a violent altercation. The police also found a lack of gunpowder residue on David's hands, which was inconsistent with his claim of firing a weapon in self-defense. No, the killing was not an accident. It was premeditated.
I did. Sometimes you think about leaving your wife for him?
I told him numerous times, man, I'm not gonna get my wife. Kid me, smacked me around a couple times. He said, if you end all of this now, then I'm done with you forever. Got real loud with me. You know, kind of like up in my face. he had those little derringers. I saw it. I was not there when Brad was killed.
You were at his house.
Yes, sir.
I remember. You were
Oh,
there.
God.
You know exactly when he was killed.
Yes, sir, I know.
You were there when he was killed.
No, sir, I was not at his house when that man was murdered.
In the weeks that followed, the case against David Kinny only grew stronger. Investigators dug into his personal life, uncovering the extent of his affair with Brad. The more they learned, the more they realized that David had been trapped in a web of lies. His affair with Brad had been his deepest secret, and when Brad threatened to expose it, David saw no way out. His solution? To silence the one person who could ruin everything. He killed Brad McGarry to protect himself from the shame and destruction that would come with the truth. As the trial approached, the case became a local sensation. The residents of West Bellaire, who had once seen David and Brad as close friends, were now stunned by the dark secrets that had been hidden behind their relationship. Brad's family was devastated, and Sherry, David's wife, was left to grapple with the painful reality that her husband had been living a double life. In the end, David's actions were a tragic result of betrayal, desperation, and the consequences of keeping a secret too dark to keep hidden forever. David Kinny was arrested and charged with aggravated murder. The case against him was solid, built on a foundation of forensic evidence, witness statements, and his own confession. In 2018, after a lengthy trial, David was convicted of murdering Brad McGarry. The sentencing was swift life in prison without the possibility of parole. Let me know what do you think of this case and which you would like to see next. Till next time.